Should we do this army list, and then you can get pissed off about Dweg after?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
That works.
All right.
The heat that I'm going to throw on Blessed is you're not ready for it. I'm telling you.
Fucking good. Someone needs to be entertaining. Hello, and welcome to BonkTable. I'm Mass, and today I'm with my co-host Mike.
Hello.
There he is.
I'm Mike.
Do you have a last name, or are you just Mike?
It's just Mike.
Oh, did you watch Superbad?
Yeah, like 100 years ago, but yeah.
Yeah, just McLovin.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, just Mike. No, my first name is Mike, and my last name is Mike Motorbike.
God damn.
It's hyphenated.
Jesus Christ. We just started. What the fuck?
Anyway, on to the Conquest podcast.
Oh my god. Yeah, we swear this is a podcast. This is a Conquest podcast. We swear.
Yeah.
So the things we're going to be talking about today, before Mike Motorbike fucking destroys me again, is we're going to be going... Our topic is army list building and what you should be doing when you build your list for the game and kind of all the things you want to think about there. Our rule of the week is going to be blessed. And we got some PB news. And for PB news, we have... let me just pull it up here. Bling, blah, blah, bling. Yeah, it's saying the news channel.
I feel like this is like the third or fourth episode in a row where the PB News is like, Thunder Chieftain's coming out.
Oh no, there's a little more. So, we have a PB News channel on the BonkTable Discord. You can find that in the show notes below, or if you're watching it on or listening to it on YouTube. I know it's weird. People listen to this on YouTube, and I think it's because like I throw a meme onto it, and people are there just for the meme. But BonkTable has a Discord. Go check that out. And a YouTube channel. Also go check that out.
And the Discord, after a month of not figuring out how to do it, has a permanent link now. So rest assured, the link you click will probably get you to the Discord.
Hopefully. Because I did update...
That's not...
Oh, go ahead.
That's not a guarantee. But sorry, go ahead.
Thanks. I did go back and re-update the link for everywhere where it was previously posted, so it should work.
Nice. Yeah, so join us in the podcast, or the Discord, about the podcast. Yeah.
We also have a couple other community content creators in there who are posting their work. I know we got Just Roll Ones, another Conquest podcast. I know, well, we've been not really chatting. It's mostly been like, I've been chatting with one of their guys about like doing a collab. We're going to collaborate and do an episode together on what? I have fucking no idea, but it'd be really funny getting two Canadians and then our British daddies to watch over us for like 2 goddamn seconds.
That's going to be 2 frustrated daddies, I feel like, but...
Oh, man. I'm going to send them...
Let's roll.
I might clip this out and send that to one of them and be like, here you go. Yeah. So... I'm really happy to get other content creators onto the BonkTable Discord. If you're a content creator and you want to come on, just, hop onto the BonkTable Discord, shoot me a message, say, hey, I'm a creator. You'll get a different colored name and the ability to post community content. And I basically delete any of the chatter, so it's just straight content. That's it. You can actually find shit in there.
The good stuff.
Yeah, you can find shit in there. It's really nice.
A usable thing on the internet?
What?
My God, I haven't encountered that in 15 years.
Is that when the internet? No, the internet's a bit older than that because I was born before Google, and was I born before the internet?
I remember when the internet became widely available for consumers. If that like, because you can't really be like, oh, I was there when the internet came out, because it didn't work that way. But like, I remember when it was like suddenly possible to get dial-up internet in the city, like pretty easily and at a rate that wasn't like insane. Yeah. And
you were also a chimney sweep before that in 1803, so
that's true. And I mean, hundreds of years before that, I hatched out of my egg on top of that big mountain.
Mount. I'm trying to figure out.
I don't know, man. It's just Big Mountain to me.
Oh, Mount Vesuvius.
I don't know. The people who live there. I called them the Big Mountainese people. Raised me, and then I came here. And well, I mean, some other stuff happened, but I digress.
That's a story for another time.
Yeah.
All right. Should we get to the news then?
Yeah.
All right. So, PB News. In our PB News Discord channel, you'll find links and pictures to the 100 Kingdoms founder exclusive St. George and the Dragon. It's a cool-ass dude on a knight with a pimped-out spear sword thing stabbing a big worm. Looks pretty baller. I have one on pre-order, and I'm excited to build and paint it up later when that's finally out. We have... hype.
Oh, no, I mean, I was just going to say, what a neat-looking model. Even I like it, and I don't play the faction, but what does that really add?
But the thing you want is the Drum Beast pre-purchase bundle. We got a picture of that thing and the rider. What kind of looks like I'm not going to lie, it kind of looks like he's photoshopped to a base what's vertical and he's like horizontal, and it's kind of weird, but I know it's not. It's like, what the hell is up with this?
Oh, let me pull that up, because I think I know what you're talking about. I think that's the Lady Scion that is the special model for that one.
Oh, so you're
referring to.
You're all over this then.
Well, that's the thing. I know Parabellum is going to blacklist us for what I'm about to say.
Oh, well.
But I only wanted a Tauntaur and not really a Drum Beast until they changed the bundle to have the special girl model in the Drum Beast, and now I want that quite a bit, but like, I can only spend so much money on little toy dinosaurs before I have to answer the people in my life. So I think I'm just going to wait, because that'll be, it's my understanding, is going to be coming out as a standalone model later on. But they unveiled it as the exclusive model coming in the big dino bundle, which rules, because I love the girl versions of models.
It's just, I like girls. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, that's trite and problematic in its own way a little bit, but
wait, what, really?
I think they're cool is the thing, but no, I was just messing around. That's beyond the scope of this Discord Discord podcast. This podcast Discord. You could actually come and talk to me about it on the Discord. Probably, I would engage with that there, but not on here. No, it's girl models are cool. It's actually good to see that in war games, I think. So I'm all for it. I'll buy any model that originally had a male presenting model, and then you make later a female presenting version of it. You got me. $30, $60, whatever. I'm in.
Yeah, this is now. PB knows how to make you spend your money, so they'll be like, "All right, we'll just female the entire line, and Mike will rebuy everything."
Exactly. The PB top brass is listening to this podcast and being like, standing in front of a big console and being like, "Got him!" Hitting a button on a big computer with like a world map on top of it.
And finally, we have a picture for the Thunder Rider Chieftain, who is fucking huge on the Triceratops. Yeah, it's a Triceratops. This thing is huge.
Big guy, big dinosaur.
It's resin. That matters. Yep. I hope the Thunder Riders themselves are not resin. Like, they're actually... what the fuck is it?
They should be plastic.
Yeah, because usually they do the characters in resin, but lately they've been turning a lot of their characters to plastic too, so, I'm kind of hoping that trend keeps going.
Yeah, it's hard to say. The trend that I've observed up to this point is it seems like they do the resin models until the molds give out, and then they do them in plastic. But that might not have any basis in fact, and I feel like if I were to say that in the company Discord, specifically somebody from the company would come out to tell me I'm wrong. But it's like, that's what it seems like, because the plastic blooded came out
not too
sort
long
of
ago.
just as the resin blooded stopped being available, and like maybe they're doing things completely differently from how plastic manufacturing is understood by me personally, but it's my understanding that a mold, whether it's resin or plastic, costs so much money that you pretty much use it till it's ruined, or you can't afford to use it anymore.
Yeah.
Or else you're not getting a return on investment there. So I have to assume that that's the logic behind it, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, flood in the comments to tell me I'm wrong. Join the Discord to tell me I'm wrong. This is how we get engagement in 2023. I say a bunch of stupid crap that's unprovable, and I get the people mad, and then they join our Discord, and then I'm very charming to them.
Is that our Discord? It's just gonna be a Discord of haters.
Yeah.
We'll find all the haters. You can live here now. We'll keep you fed and watered.
No, that is actually not a good idea. If you don't like us, actually don't
join
the Discord. But if you like us or you're on the fence, come on down.
Yeah, the moderation will actually happen. Should we? So that's really just PB news. Oh, Gen Con's coming up. That I believe is August next weekend, first weekend of August. So 4, 5, 6.
Yep. So with the rhythm of rules adjustments that we've seen so far, there's the potential for us to see potentially some things happen after Gen Con, but nothing's been said officially. So.
Well, it's probably going to be like Gen Con. PB's going to take all the notes and all the tournament results. They're going to be like, okay, well, this is what happened. And then we're going to sit here for 3 to 4 months and build something. So you're probably not going to see anything until like November, December anyway.
Yeah, but people should start getting their hopes up now. That they're
really
worked up about it when they have to wait.
Oh, yeah, man. It gets annoying as shit.
Well, I just, I don't do well with delayed gratification. Like, as soon as I want something, like, I want to just have it. And so I don't, like, when they tell me that new rules are coming, it's like, don't tell me that shit, just give me the rules. And so I'm a big baby. It's the long and short of it.
Well, at least you're calling yourself out on it.
No. I'm a big baby and I want my thing. It's fine.
Well,
it's okay to be a grown adult who's like that.
I want Steel Temple to come out because, man, I did a proxy game with them, and the battle report should be up on YouTube by now. I think it's number 15, 14? It's the one with 100 Kingdoms versus City States. And, man, Steel Temple solved about 90% of my problems with 100 Kingdoms, I'm not going to lie.
That's a good thing. I'm hoping that the Thunder Riders do the same for me.
Should we get into our rule of the week so we can get onto the army list?
And I suppose so people don't talk about how we ramble for 2.5 hours.
We rambled
before we talk about the podcast.
We rambled for 40 minutes.
That's a solid ramble. That's not my best.
That's not my best ramble.
Maybe think about that.
We should. Oh man, I'm always thinking about what the April Fool's podcast episode is going to be because I want to do something fun, and it might just be us rambling for like 3 hours.
Just talking about nothing?
Yeah, I think
the Seinfeld episode?
Yeah.
I'm into that so hard.
Oh yeah. Okay. Then if people remember this episode, then they know what they're going to get in advance. But then the problem is we have to remember this episode and what we talked about for that. But something's going to happen.
Non-existent chance of that on my part. So.
Oh yeah. It's like what, 9 months away? I don't give a we'll find out what happens then.
Yeah.
Okay. So rule of the week, blessed.
Blessed.
So, let's talk about it. You all want me to read it off?
Sure.
All right. Blessed. Once per round, stands with this special rule may choose to re-roll all their failed hit rolls or all their failed defense rolls during a clash or charge action. All stands in the regiment must re-roll the same rolls at the same time and must declare that the use of blessed before making the roll they wish to re-roll. That's it.
So, have you ever considered that a special rule might be too good?
So, are we going to get to the meat and potatoes of this simple paragraph at the start right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if there's any other way to do it, ultimately.
So, is this best rule in the game?
It almost, like, it's definitely in the top. I would only say that, like, there are other ones that, like, on paper, Blessed is probably the best special rule in the game. In, like, on the table, there are other, like, fluid formation stuff, just because you can do mind-blowing stuff if you're smart and the circumstances are right. I would say that there are times when those will win out, but just, like,
just straight number, like math.
Yeah,
math
straight down the
quest.
line. Blessed is what. There's not. Like, you couldn't even make a rule that's almost as good as Blessed.
Well,
it's so good.
Blessed has been nerfed and adjusted and actually diminished in power since when I started playing it back in 1.15 to what we currently have now. It's still an incredibly strong rule.
Yeah, I'm saying this as somebody who's been the beneficiary of Blessed. Like.
Well, we both play with it, so
yeah, it's
we have Blessed off. Here, okay, so let's break this rule down for what it's doing, what is it allowing to do, what it's not allowing you to do, and ways around it and ways you should be using it. Because when you find Blessed really powerful is if you're playing into it and your opponent has set it up so that you're kind of getting screwed over by Blessed because they're using it in its proper application. And I'm just going to kind of talk about it as a whole to get through all the different parts it has, because it's this big thing that affects a bunch of other things. So I'm just going to talk. So at the top, first thing you got to know about Bless is that it is a reroll all your failed hit rolls or all your failed defense rolls during a clash or charge action. Period. That's a big one. So it rerolls all your hit rolls or all your defense rolls during a clash or charge. So if there's magic, if there's shooting, if there's any other thing like lethal demise, any of that stuff, like, or if Bless does not affect any of that. So you're just getting hit because it specifically states during a clash or charge action. And the charge one is basically for impact attacks, so you can reroll your impact attacks or your opponent's impact attacks. Like the defense rolls when someone impacts you. Where Bless gets really powerful is when you use it to reroll your defensive rolls. This is kind of like where it goes, and that's the majority of where I use Bless, is actually rerolling all the way defensive rolls. And it also works on your evasion because evasion is considered a defense roll. So if you have Blessed on something and it's evasion 2, well, you can just reroll your evasion 2s. It's really good against like a Cleave Infinite. It's like a Smite bot or something. Yeah. Where I use Blessed less on is when I'm using my own hit rolls. So if I'm charging, I might declare Blessed with the prior commander and then charge them with all this Crimson Towers and like reroll their impact attacks and do a bunch of damage that way. Or I might be rerolling my clash rolls because the thing I'm going to be killing is gonna die and there's nothing else around to attack me, so I might as well just confirm the kill at that point. So that's when I'll use it. But another one is you can only use it once. So, and also you have to declare you're going to use it before you roll. So if your opponent rolls 15 cleave 2 attacks, you declare your Bless after knowing how much damage is going to be coming in. So then you pick up the dice, you roll the 15 cleave 2 attacks, you then pick it up and re-roll it. And that's how many saves you get. Before, you would just be like, you would grab the 50 attacks, roll it all out, and if you save like 13 of them, why are you using Bless? you just take the 2 damage and move on. However, now you have to declare it after you know how many hits are basically coming into you, and you don't get to play that like additional game of maybe I'll just roll really well and ignore most of them to begin with, so then I can just, save my Bless for another attack. The other thing that, like, a way to get around Bless is just to hit that regiment with a ton of stuff. So if you have, like, a mediums that are just, like, let's say they're 5 attack each. I think Blooded are 5 attacks each, or are they 6 attacks each?
Blooded are 5.
Okay. So let's say you have a bunch of Blooded coming in. What?
Now I have to double check. I should really know that. Wow.
Tells you how much Blooded ever get into combat before they die.
Not a good scene. No, they usually do, but it's usually I have. Sorry, yeah, they are. No, they're. Yeah, they are. Fuck me to hell. There's 6 attacks actually base.
Okay,
sorry, it's Braves are 4, Hunters are 5, Blooded are 6. That's what was throwing.
All right. So let's say you got 3 stands of Blooded coming at you, like 6 each. So there's 6, 12, 18 plus 1, 19 attacks. They all hit you. They get like 14 successes for whatever else reason. And you're like, well, I'm going to declare Bless on this because I'm going to save a bunch of them. And you're like, okay, cool. And then your opponent comes in and shoots you with a bunch of Slingers and shoots you with a bunch of Hunters and then charges you with an Apex. Well, you don't get Blessed for any of that. And that's kind of the way to get around Blessed and to deal with it, is to just kind of saturate it with attacks. And to make and then also kind of play like attack chicken with your opponent to kind of force out Bless suboptimally. So if they decide to use Bless on, let's say, a bunch of like 5 cleave 3 attacks, and they got like 18 wounds, well, the 5 cleave 3 attacks are probably going to kill the regiment or anything. And also, Bless is kind of wasted because it's not hardened or anything. So they're only, let's say it's a defense 4, so it's only being defense 1. So like they're kind of wasting their Bless at that point. And then you come in with some other stuff. Let's say, like the 16 hits from the Blooded, or like a bunch of armor piercing, or a bunch of cleave off the big dino. Like it's stuff like that. So you kind of like saturate the Bless unit with threats, so that they eventually just, like, stuff leaks in and goes through, and you kind of play hit chicken with them a bunch, so that's kind of like getting into mind of your opponent. And magic still works fine, guns still work fine, so there's been times where I've just run up and, like, gone to a fight with a thing and just shot it. I was just like, well, I'm gonna keep shooting it, and they're like, I'm holding Blessed. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm still shooting, doing damage to you, it's great. So... Yeah, but the thing that is causing people problems with Blessed is that they're putting one regiment versus one regiment. So the one regiment they're throwing in to another regiment, let's just use Ashen Dawn. That's like the biggest Blessed thing in the game right now. So they'll throw like a regiment of, I don't know. Let's cleave 1. I think it's like Ogmas from City States were cleave 1 or something. So they'll charge a bunch of Ashen Dawn, they'll go down to defense 3, they'll Bless that all off, and then they'll be basically fine, and then their opponent goes, okay, cool, like back, forth, then they'll never attack that Bless unit or that Ashen Dawn unit again with anything else. It's just the one thing, and then they'll slowly just start dying to the Ashen Dawn because they're like, cool, we're just going to keep stabbing at these guys until they're dead.
Yeah. So
that's kind of the trap I see people falling into, is that they're not committing enough things to deal with Blessed, or if they are going to try and not deal with Blessed, they need to send something that is like a speed bump, a pinner, a tar pit, an anvil, or not an anvil, you send in a tar pit, something that you can just like dick around and die. Like, this is why we did the terminology episode before this one, so I can just be like, hey, I can list these off, and if you watch or listen to the previous episode, you know what I'm talking about. So that's kind of the thing with Blessed, is that it's really good one time. You want to kind of like duke out your opponent on when they want to use it, and you want to saturate them with damage if you're going to kill that thing. And you kind of want a majority of your damage to come from range attacks with armor pierce, magic attacks, or have multiple instances and ways to get multiple regiments ganging up on that Bless thing, so they can only Bless one thing at a time. There we go. That's kind of my whole Bless rambling talk. Also, you can't reroll or reroll. So if anything makes you reroll, so let's say if for every successful armor save they have to reroll, and then Bless is like, well, every failed armor save you reroll. Well, you only get to reroll once, so you do all the damage, the defending player would take all their hits, and then I think they would just choose to reroll their failed successfully. Go ahead.
So when you have something that, like, when both sides have something that reroll the same roll, there's just no reroll.
Oh, okay, perfect then. So
yeah,
there's no reroll.
Cancel each other out. Yeah, you just take it.
There we go.
So that's potentially one way. If you have something that's going to give you that ability, you can cancel it out. The difficulty becomes, like, if somebody has half an idea what your list does and blessed, they're gonna block the thing that hurts the most. So you have to hope that your weight of fire attack guys like your blooded are in the flank where they actually have a chance of getting a hit through, or else it's just going to be like, well, I'll just save these normally on 4s without a reroll and it'll be mostly fine. And then
yeah, it's all about that
your ass out
hit saturation, really.
Yeah. But so yeah, you got to be ready for it, and you have to be able to have something set up for when the blast happens, or if it's happening on a consistent basis, you've got to have a plan for that. That's why Valkyries are so strong. The cool thing with Valkyries too is if you take a big brick of them, which you should be doing for 100 reasons, when they get down, like if you take 6, when they get down to half strength, you will then get Flurry on them. Or how does that work?
Well, yeah, so
this might be a quick edit while after I refresh myself on this.
No, everything stays in.
So they take +1 attack on wounds, and then I was right, and then they get Flurry if they've already got +1 attacks from being wounded. So that's great on the Valkyries, because if you're taking the Valkyries and they manage to get down to half strength, you now have Flurry on all of your attacks, so you never have to make a choice with Blessed. Now you just get to use it every time on the defense roll. So anything that gives you other rerolls also is a huge benefit to Blessed, because then it just now you've got tons of rerolls.
Yeah, and Bless is really, really, really good defensively. I find more so than it is offensively.
Yeah, because offensively, you're just re-rolling for another chance. But defensively, every successful re-roll, that's a wound eliminated.
And also because it's on the Clash or Impact action, those wounds eliminated mean you don't have to take Resolve.
Yeah.
So, while your opponent's like, okay, well, instead of 7 hits, I take 10 hits, and then they roll the Resolve on all those, and then instead of 5 resolve, they take 7 resolve, and it's like, okay, well, they're still alive because they have 12 health. Stuff like that happens. It's either Bless or Fluid Formation, what are the top special rule in the entire game for me. And the thing why I think Fluid Formation is a bit lower than Blessed is because it's on less things. If there was a mastery or an heirloom but put on a character and then gave Fluid Formation to the unit, if that was a thing, oh god, Fluid Formation stock would be going up way higher. But Fluid Formation is such a strong rule too. And yeah. I believe we did talk about that one during the movement and positioning episode, so if you want to go check out episode 1 of the podcast, so you can listen to us rant about that one. I don't think we talk about it as a rule of the week, but we get onto it during the movement and positioning because it is that powerful.
Yeah. So the thing there, and this is where probably I'm going to get some people's blood boiling, Fury, is that I think that probably Bless should be less available overall.
So it should be on less things?
It's either, I don't know what the solution is. Either it should be more, I don't know, either less available to more units overall, or the units that do have it should have more, some kind of a limitation. That entire turn, everybody gets a Blessed, sucks ass to go up against.
For 100k?
Yeah, it is objectively a shitty deal. So because it's such a powerful ability. But because it's once per game, as much as I hate it, I'm not going to say get rid of it, because at least it's just once. And if
it's also tied to that character's warband, so it's only on a maximum of 4 regiments.
Yeah, but that's,
yeah, it's still rough.
That's like saying you can only eat 2 kilograms of candy.
No, fuck you! I want all the candy.
Fuckload of candy.
This is a fuckload of candy. When I am choosing to do that turn to you, I'm obviously picking the most optimal turn to do it on when everything's going to be most affected by it.
Yeah, so you need to be able to anticipate that and have a plan to ruin that for them, because otherwise,
or kill the character.
The problem is, so frequently, that important turn is equally important for you to actually fight things, and that's where it gets shitty. So one thing that I've never done enough as Wadroon that I'm hoping to get to do in the near future is actively use my movement and chance to fuck over that blessed turn in a way that makes it so frustrating for the people who play 100 Kingdoms in my local meta that they start to look at a different supremacy ability.
All 30 of us?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
all
so many.
3 million of you. The guy who has my name.
That's right. Megillah. That's right. We have Mike, and then we have 100 Kingdoms Mike.
Yeah.
Wonder what he's up to. I hope he comes down to play some more. That guy's fun.
Yeah. Shouts out to 100 Kingdoms Mike.
Yeah. You know what? I should, when this podcast episode comes out, I'm gonna go like at him on the Discord and be like, or on our local like Discord for our own store and be like, hey, you've been mentioned.
Yeah. Be good. That'll get him out.
Yeah, no, he's fun.
But yeah, it's that's the thing. If everybody is blessed for a turn, you basically are either getting your stuff pushed back into you for a turn, or you're figuring out a plan to not have that happen to you for that turn and then get back on track as quickly as possible. But on the other hand, like when like Valks, a unit I love, and again I feel like I'm arguing against myself here, but when you can get up to the defense 4 with blessed and you just get that every single turn, and then the character in the unit can just cast a spell to heal the unit back up for the 3 to 4 actual damage you're taking every turn. Fuck that. That's ridiculous.
Oh, it's fucking annoying as all hell.
That's too strong. The only reason it's not too strong is because everything else is because you're getting tabled with every other unit that you're running as Nords.
Have you ever thought of running 2 Volas with 2 bricks of Velks and then just running like... Okay,
I have, but like if I want to play Dwag, I'll just play Dwag, you know?
Oh, okay, that's true. You just play Dwag. My thing with the Volva and the Velks is that her mainstay Velks with the Volva Warband, how that's all set up, that's great. That's a great dip to do as Nords. It works really well, and I think it's fantastic. Her restricted slot options are trash.
Oh yeah, they're really bad. They make it tough.
If there was something that was like a hard hitter and the Velks were the anvil, perfect, great. It works. It's contained within itself. You're spending points on what you want to do anyway, and you don't have to dip into another character to then get a mainstay, then go get yourself a Mountain Jotnar or something. Like, yeah. It's already built into the Volva's Warband, and that's kind of what gets me with like the Theist Priest and the Chapter Mage is that when you're playing those things, you're just being like a militia spam and crossbow and men at arms. Like the characters are what you want. But you want them in better regiments, but there is no better regiment than what they have in the base. So you guys like seek new escort. While the Volva and the Velks mainstay works really well as an anvil, it just needs a restricted option. What is that hammer? And I know PB has said they're going to come out with these and expand these warbands and make them bigger, and there's going to be more stuff. It's like, okay, cool, that's great, but I don't think we're going to see that for probably like 3 years. Maybe 5, like, and that's like a long shot, but I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see something like that for like 3 or 5 years, because PB is like putting out a new faction every year, releasing stuff for existing factions every year. Like 100 Kingdoms is almost filled out, and that was the first faction.
Yeah.
So like once they're filled out, what's next, kind of thing.
Yeah. But yeah, it's tough, and with what I'm noticing, because the other week I tried running a 4-character Wadroon list, it was interesting. It went okay. I won the game that I played, if I recall, or it was like is a spiritual victory at the very least. I don't really remember the specifics at this point, but I'm not mad about it, so couldn't have gone that bad. But the reality is, like, 2 characters is fine. By the 3rd character, you're paying a straight tax, and by the 4th character, you're getting taxed to death. And that's like the return on investment for characters at 90 or 100 points when you're playing a faction like Wadroon or even Nords, who are not really a horde faction by any means, or a points cheap faction to get stuff that performs. Like losing 90 to 100 points to get a character on there to make something work sucks. it limits your options insanely, and dropping down back to a 3-character list for Woodrune, which seems to be the minimum that I can get away with at this point, to include everything that I want to have. The amount of stuff that I was able to include just shedding that character is really, you notice it, you know?
Oh yeah, like I have noticed it, especially in my list building. It's like, should I add another character? Should I take away a character? Should I like basically take a cheap ass regiment for the character? And I guess we'll move into army list building right now because we're starting to talk about it.
Yep, smooth segue though. You got to give us that.
Yeah, 10 points. So yeah, character. Where do you want to start on this? My God, this is gonna be a big one. Or do you want me to just start talking?
I mean, we might as well start with characters. It's the first thing that you really have to think about with list building, beyond just like, these are the units I like, because it's, once you have an idea the units that you're going to take, like, then the first real concrete step to list building is like figuring out which characters are going to let you take them.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just going to use 100 Kings as an example because that's what I play. Characters. So things you want to look for your character is what warband is it unlocking for you? And, well, we can talk about character. Oh, shit. We should go probably more like general army list thesis and then before we get into characters.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so we'll come back to characters just because I got to explain another concept that's bigger than the characters themselves, and that is your overall list construction idea. So this is kind of like, what do you want to build? Because what type of list you want to build is going to affect what characters you're going to take, what are going to affect what troops you're going to take, because all the troops are tied to warbands that are under the characters. There we go. So, army list ideas. So when you come to the army builder, either on the PB website or on your phone through the Conquest app, you kind of like put in whatever point level you're going to play. I'm going to do this all at 2,000 points because that's what majority I play. Things I want to look for, you kind of get into like archetypes or styles of army lists, and those can be a generalist list. A generalist list is something that is designed to cover a wide variety of different threats and ideas and answer to a ton of stuff, while it's not it doesn't focus on one thing in particular. A lot of people kind of get told to like build a generalist list just because it'll cover a lot of things you're going to be fighting, and it's going to be more well-rounded into the entirety of your local meta, or if you're traveling for tournaments or whatever you're going to be doing and playing. And it's kind of like a really nice start to build your list. Then you get into stuff where it's more focused. So this would be like, I'm going to run an all cavalry list. So I'm going to be very fast. I'm going to hit very hard. But if I get bogged down, I'm going to be trapped there. For hopefully I have something in there that can unstick me once I stop moving forward. You can get into a gunline list. So Dwagholm are really known for this because there you just send up hold warriors and like Infernal Automaton, random just like defensive stuff, while they're Fireforged, Hellbringer Drake, they're double wizards, one in the Hellbringer Drake, one in the Fireforge, kind of just shoot and unload spells into people, killing them while they're held back by the wall of just dwarven bodies, who aren't really doing the damage, but they're there stalling and holding off long enough so that the guns can do all the work. And that's kind of like a more gunline list. You get into lists that are, I guess, weight class specific. So that's something that Conquest has that other games, like other tabletop miniature games, don't have, is kind of weight class restrictions. And when you build your list, you have your 3 weight class, so you have light, medium, and heavy. And your scoring units are your mediums and heavies, but your heavies come on later and are usually, they're not slower as in speed, they're slower in when they come and become relevant on the table. While lights are faster because they're just on the table right away, except they're usually not survivable. They're usually like skirmishers, they're usually your range units, funny enough, and they're usually you're skirmishing with them before the majority of your list what kind of tends to be mediums because they can score stuff and they got enough like oomph in them, but they're also costed decently. Like it kind of goes with like you want some lights, a bunch of mediums, and a couple heavies to finish off. That's kind of like goes into like generalist list building. But you then have those weight classed heavy lists. So if you have a light focus list or heavy list, you will just have like a ton of lights. So you might have out of your list of 10 cards, 7 of them might be just light regiments running around. And then you have kind of medium heavy, where 7 out of your 10 cards or regiments are going to be mediums. And then you have heavy. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to say focus from now on because that just sounds stupid. So you have heavy focus lists that are going to have like Crimson Tower, Steel Legion, Ashen Dawn. They're going to have more of those, and then they're going to take like a Militia Bowman just to spend for the tax for those heavies because you're going to be buffing out those. So you have like lights just enough to get all the heavies, and then you're going to be coming out a lot on turn 3 through 5 and getting those heavies up the table to start fighting, and you kind of get pushed back closer to your table edge because your opponent's just been on the table faster, but the heavies usually have enough killing power to start cutting through stuff. And it's kind of now a race of, can you kill enough things to get across the table into zones and outscore your opponent before the game ends? So there's a couple of styles of play there. There's more aggressive fast lists. So Droon can send some stuff like 24 inches up the table. What did we get to? Was it like 23 inches? I think we were like doing some math on another podcast where it was like chanting Famine or Conquest with like Raptor Riders. You just go like zip up the table really quick.
Yeah, you can get out there really fast. I've been using a unit of hunters with a skirmisher and a banner, and that's been pretty silly too.
Yeah, so you can. Yeah. So you can. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. It's with if you're. I mean, every faction kind of has one thing that just rips ass up the table too. Like if because Vanguard hunting packs even without chance will get 21 inches up the table. It's not going to do too much of anything that far up, but it'll get there.
We'll sure get there. Can it set the reinforcement line that far up?
No, it's a regular, so it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah,
that would have been too good.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to overtune that particular unit, which is weird because it was in such a woeful place before the revision, but now it's like right in the pocket. But I'm gonna take this opportunity to point out that like you can't in this game right now with the scenario pack. I don't feel like unless you have units that fulfill all the roles that you need to fulfill in a game, like the current scenario pack doesn't really allow you to go too far into like a
skew.
Yeah, because like at the end of the day, like I can flood the table with lights and have them all get blipped in the first 6 turns and never score anything and then get tabled. Like, I mean, that is an option, but it wouldn't be one that I would necessarily recommend people exercise.
No, and that's
so you have to make sure that you're taking like the pieces that you need to actually like win the game, because
and that's why lists are more medium focused or medium characters and lights to score those points. Yeah. So if you see in list building or other people's list building that they're putting medium characters and lights or taking more mediums, it's because of this, because the only way you win the game currently in the scenario packet is to score points. You can be tabled, but if your opponent can't then run their regiments onto scenario elements, and then score enough points before turn 10, you just win, even if you're dead.
Yeah.
There's been a couple games where, well, it's mostly like I've tabled my opponent, and then I've just ran to the scenario elements and just went turn 7, 8, 9, 10, and like scored all the bonuses and the points and just won the game. It's like, cool.
Yeah.
So the scenario packet itself kind of prevents super hard skews, as well as the scenario rules, like the scenario packet, like list building creation rules, where you can only take 2 of the same character, and the mounted version and the foot version count as the same character, so you can't take 2 noble lords on foot and 2 mounted noble lords, because then you would have 4 noble lords in total. So there's that. And then you can take 8 of the same regiment, so you could take like 8 more crossbows, but if you put a 9th in there, you can't do that kind of thing. So There are restrictions. It's just as you build your list, you'll find that it's actually kind of gets a little tough to actually hit those maxes. But if you really wanted to do it, you totally could. I wouldn't recommend it, of course, but it's there.
Speaking from experience, if you've only got 2 or 3 scoring units in a list and you lose one, it doesn't. Suddenly, your odds of winning the game feel very remote.
Yeah, not good.
Because, like, especially with some of the more elite costed armies, you don't have the points. I'm sure I've used this term in the past, and I will continue to with Wild Abandon. Objective chuds, something that costs like under 120 points, ideally, under 140.
I'd say 130 to 100 is kind of like your sweet spot.
The sweet spot, yeah.
Yeah.
And all it has to do is be heavy enough to score, and be able to get to where it needs to do that. And then if it does anything over and above that, cool. But that's all it needs to do.
I do love that word, objective chud.
Yeah, so you need to. So if you don't have objective chuds though, which happens with Wadroon lists, because like the cool thing about Nords is the Nord hunting pack can also double as an objective chud. It's
the Fenris Beast pack.
Yeah, it's verse, but the hunting pack can only do hunting pack stuff, and it can't cap. So if you've got, and I do still skew a little light heavy, but what I've also done, and I'm just getting into this because I think it's my best shot at a natural segue into it, is one trick that us light army people, and I'm sorry that I've just taken over this discussion.
No, we're talking about shit. It's army list building.
one trick that us light heavy army people can rely on is usually there's a way to sneak a medium or a heavy character into a light unit. It's like putting a matriarch queen in a unit of raptors with Brood of Amora, or into a unit of hunters, or putting a Koningir into your
Bocho.
Either of those are good ways to get an extra unit or to get a scoring unit onto the point
hold on
as early as possible.
Bocho is Bochosen. Just a heads up if no one can make that connection. Please continue.
Yes. And not Bozen, like other people say. I'm drawing my line in the sand.
I like Bocho.
I do too. But nonetheless, so with Bocho and a Konaniri, or Stalkers and a
Blooded,
thank you.
Specifically the female Blooded.
It would be if I could afford that Founders Edition. Or if
someone wants to
remake it.
If someone has the female Blooded, message us and we'll talk.
Yeah, let's figure it out. Tell me that female Blooded. But right now I just have the regular Blooded, which is fine. But it's good for objective, like that, and Stalkers is great for capping objectives. Same with the Koningir in the Bochos, and you could put you could put the Blooded in the Bochos, and you go nuts. It's up to you. You know, that's where you can just get crazy with it and be creative. You know, show your show your creativity with what unit you attach the Blooded to. But yeah, otherwise, like other factions that I don't play seem to have loads of cheap mediums that they can use for the purpose. But where I live, it's a little bit more scarce, so you have to take those advantages. But the disadvantage there is now you're putting a character, which generally is a scoring piece in most scenarios, into a fairly vulnerable unit.
Yep.
So you got to be prepared for that, because Bochosen do die. Like, they're nasty, and they fight good, but they do die.
With their changes, I think it's easier to kill them, because there's times where it's like Evasion 2, Wound 5s, and like these fucking things never, like, they don't die quickly enough. Now I feel with the change to their, I think they're Evasion 1 Defense 2, and the range is 14, they have a higher chance of dying. When I, like, for myself, I'm like, oh, sweet.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. They were in a weird place where they were quite a bit more resilient than probably they were meant to be, given how dangerous and light they are.
Yeah, and they also had like 5 wounds each or something. Or was it 5 or 6? I forget something.
It was 5 wounds. So they were basically orc tough.
Dweg tough. That's what I... What's that stuff that I look at car commercials and they're like, smear the back of your truck with this, it's like the box coating. It's like this plastic, and it's like, oh, dwag tough. That's what I'm thinking about. I guess I go figure. This is a terrible joke and a segue. Please continue talking like an actual person.
I don't watch a lot of car repair television, or I guess car repair advertising television, so I've missed out on this cultural touch point, so I apologize for that. But yeah, list building, getting lights is good if you can get them onto points, but the other problem is there are some scenarios where so because scoring doesn't start till turn 2, and I mean there's even arguments that it should start even later, that strategy sometimes has limited value depending on the scenario that you're playing, because sometimes in the you can get, how am I going to phrase this? So I'm thinking of the scenario where you've got the 3 or the 6 total objectives.
Oh, that's like the first one.
I'm going to pull up the scenario packs that I don't like
Number 1, I'm pretty sure. Divide and Conquer.
That sounds possible.
It's like the 6 little 6-inch zones. Wow, 6-inch zones. Look at that. And 8 objectives.
Yeah, that's the one. So with that one, like, your guy is going to get on the far point, like on turn 2 either way, like the mid board point.
Get on it, turn 1.
Doing a bunch of...
It's only like 9 inches away from the board edge.
So, I mean, like, yeah, having a fast light is going to do that, but technically, like, with Wadroon, definitely you could make there are some silly little ways that you could just have somebody march up on turn 2 and just slap right on there, no problem. So you don't, like, I don't know.
Well, it's more... I want to say it's more for stuff like melee, where things are further up, or like bulwark, where things are further up, or bottleneck. It's for scenarios like that.
It was cool in head-to-head where I was able to basically, the A and B side of the zone or map, I was essentially able to just keep the unit that was holding his home zone there, just dealing with that for the whole game, because if they walked off the point, they would just be to deal with me. They would be in danger, and they wouldn't be giving up scoring, but they would be leaving the point vulnerable. So they had to hang out on that point and not accomplish anything, just so that I couldn't send my turbo hunters with hard mommy attached.
That's why I threw my men-at-arm objective chuds onto my zone and just let them sit there all game, because I didn't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. For the
defend, boys.
Why not?
Yeah. And get all the work guys onto that middle zone.
Yeah. So that's the other thing that you have to think about with list building too, is like, what are the work pieces? What are the things that get on a thing and sit there? What's flexible? You know.
Well, then we get into like, we're just gonna roll us back. You have your overall list idea: generalist, light focused, medium focused, heavy focused, gun line. Elites are basically all the expensive, like really powerful stuff. If you're going, so it's more like smaller regiments of really powerful things, so you'll have less activations, but when you do those activations, they're going to be really strong. Then you have horde style armies, where it's just like a ton of MSUs of things, like from Hannah, there's the Goblin list, so if you go look at that battle report, it's 100 Kingdoms versus Old Dominion. That one might be 14. That Goblin list is fucking great. So you get into hordes, like there's a bunch of different like list archetypes and styles you pick when you want to build the stuff, and then we get into our characters, our regiments. So we can talk about our regiments, because that's where I'm going to segue into next, because, and not the characters, because Mike, you were talking about like kind of, you started talking to like skirmishers and like what regiments are for things. So you have the objective chud, as we're now dubbing them. That I'm just gonna call them that from now on. I don't care.
Then my work here is done.
Yeah, you've won. Fuck you. I just think that's great. Objective chud. Like fuck. So you got you pick and choose what regiments you want to secure up your idea. So I'm just gonna just pick some stuff out of 100 Kingdoms. So I got an Imperial Officer, I slapped some Men-at-Arms, those are my objective chuds. I'll slap in some Merc Crossbows. Those guys I'm using as range because I want to have a bit of guns. They're also lights, they're coming onto the table. The next thing they also are really great as, they can skirmish a bit. So I can just like move forward, shoot, twist and shoot. I can just run them into people and just do a march charge to just pin something and be a speed bump. Like, Merc Crossbows as a regiment are basically your the cheapest skirmisher, speed bump, pinner, effective. Their cheapest effective shooter, pinner, speed bump. Because the cheapest one is actually Militia Bowmen, but they're not very effective. God, they suck ass. But you still grab them and use them. You basically just use them to pin stuff or be speed bumps. But that's a regiment I'm looking for to kind of cover those things I need in my list. And as I develop my list, so I have, I got my objective chud in there on my Imperial Officer. I got my Merc Crossbows. Then I'm like, okay, what's my heavy hitter? Like, what's the thing that's going to do work? Well, Steel Legion. Steel Legion is a cleave 2, 5 attack base, clash 3 regiment. I'm like, okay, sweet. So you kind of see how I just like went in, found out what I was going to take to be my skirmisher early on. I found out what was going to take hold my objectives early on, and then I figured out what I was going to take to do work early on. And what I'm building here, just in this own warband, is actually a generalist list. Like it's got some guns, it's got some objective holding, it's got some hitting. I can add another warband of, let's say, a mounted noble lord. I can then go grab some mounted squires and some household knights. I could upgrade the household knights to veterans and like give them like 5 of them and put Olafhain's Warren Wedge on the mounted noble lord. And now I have this really fast, hard-hitting anvil with another light that can run up the table and harass. So now I'm kind of like filling out more damage with a bit of like skirmishing from the mounted squire, who's a melee light, but they're very fast and they can maneuver around and be annoying towards my opponent. So this starts like building towards a generalist list. Like it's not really like dedicating itself to one direction, but it's being available to start scoring objectives, start annoying my opponent, start answering a bunch of stuff. And that seems to be doing well for 100 Kingdoms. Like I know some stuff, especially Dweg will build more hold warriors, what are Dweg's version of objective chuds, and then move into Fire Forged for their guns, Steel Forged for a better anvil, what can also like beat the crap out of people, and then Fire Wizard on the Hellbringer Drake and Fire Wizard in the Fire Forge to just burn the shit out of stuff, and they kind of build a defensible gun line that is hard to crack and get to the juicy parts. What are the guns?
Yeah. And that's the other thing is with something like Dweg, because you have the sorcerer on the Drake, that almost serves as a... You can have that unit do objective chud work and still do its thing because of its design, which...
So, yeah.
We're going to talk about as well in depth, but...
No, that's next episode.
Yeah, so but that is something to keep in mind, is when you can, it's always good to find units, get you a unit that do both.
So, some of the best scoring units I think in this game are the range statues in Old Dominions. I forget what the hell they're called. The Caratids? Caratids, yeah. Because they're a medium range unit. They're range 20, which is like fucking far as all hell. But because they're a medium range unit, they can just sit on those zones and shoot their bows to deal damage. So they're still contributing and doing work while also scoring, what usually takes you away from work. And that's why medium or heavy characters in ranged units to sit on objectives using the character and let the archer still shoot allows you to work and score at the same time. So with this fake list with the Imperial Officer, the Men-at-Arms, the Merc Crossbows, and the Steel Legion, I could put the Imperial Officer, like I can deck him out to give him like the Kiss Farewell and marksmanship, so he has a gun if I really wanted to. Throw him in the Merc Crossbows, and now I have 2 units that can score while the Steel Legion can run around and do work, and maybe they'll score at the end of the game when everything else is dead around them. But I want those guys free and available to do work while I score with other weaker elements to continue winning the game.
Another thing that you can do with putting setting up a character in a light unit like that is you can kind of shore them up so that they become more of a threat to attack as well. Like a kitted out Conanier is not something that you necessarily want to mess with, and so if you're inviting that by dealing with the not that that's necessarily, like, there are people who will argue that that's not the optimal way to spend your points building a Nord list either way, but the point is something that just smites the shit out of you is you're going to think twice about picking a fight with it.
Oh yeah, like deterrent, comes into effect. Like, it's like, ooh, do I really want to go over there? Like, I only have my one super regiment. They got like not four, let's say 3 regiments who are gonna just like mess up my shit. Let me just
it's not always the right move, but there is, like, that cuts both ways, and finding where your opponent has put their biggest unit in and just abandoning that flank can sometimes just make that not a problem that you have to deal with.
Yeah, there are times. So for some, let's see here. What's a decent list that I have built? So this, yeah, here we go. This is something I built and played with kind of recently, and I adjusted. I talk about this in the latest battle report. I should find out what battle report I'm on. Jesus.
You know, the latest one.
Yeah, whatever. 15. There we go. It told me. So, in episode 15 of the battle reports, I made a list for a guy, and then I played it, and then I adjusted the list. It's using Sealed Temple. It's a proxied model, but in it, I have an Imperial officer with the Kiss Farewell and On Your Feet and Fire First and Aim Later, so that allows you to do the move, shoot, move, that 100, just because of the battlefield orders, you can do it. I got 2 units of Merc crossbows. They're just MSUs. I got a Hunter cadre, what's 4 stand, and the Imperial officer is sitting into that unit. And then I got a 3 stand unit of Steel Legion with like a Sandbearer and Drill Master. The Merc crossbows have banners? No, they don't have banners. The Hunter cadre is veterans. They got +1 volley because I want them to shoot. I then have a prior commander of the Sealed Temple. They just have nothing on them. 2 units of Sealed Temple with 2 units of Order of the Ashen Dawn. I think all these guys have banners. Yes, they do by the looks of it. Come on, click on the last one. There we go. And then finally, I have Chapter Mage with the unit of Men-at-Arms. The unit of Men-at-Arms just have a standard rare. But the Chapter Mage is School of Fire, Arcane 1 through 3, and Focused. And basically, I just bumped up on a Chapter Mage to be really deadly. Because what I was finding with this list is that I wanted another scoring unit, except all my regiments were filled, so I had to pull back some upgrades and reduce how many stands I had in some other regiments to get the character, to get the men-at-arms, and then I had points left over, so I just started spending them on fun stuff. This list is... It's actually a generalist list with a good amount of shooting from the Mercenary Crossbows, Hunter Cadre, and the Chapter Mage. A good amount of scoring because you got the Chapter Mage with Men-at-Arms while the Imperial Officer sits in the Hunter Cadre, so those 2 units are scoring. You also have Order of Sealed Temple that can store, and you can have Order of Ashen Dawn sit there and tank while your Steel Legion come up and fight, while your Order of Sealed Temple run around and kind of fight as well. So it's more of just kind of making its own gun line, similar to Dwag, where you have defensive stuff that can kind of fight and back and, like, you know, take the hit and do some damage, and then you have all these guns coming in to just shoot up people. A skew list that I have is, I think I called it Horse Lord. Let me just check. Yeah, I know, I did call it something. Horse Lord. This is a skew list. It's only 8 regiments. It is a Mounted Noble Lord with the Oil of Faint's Roar. He's got Tip of the Lance. He's a warlord. He's got 2 units of Mounted Squires who are all vets. He's got a 5-stand unit of Household Knights who have veterans, and then MSU Household Knight unit that's not veterans. And then I have a prior commander of the Crimson Tower who just has Disorienting Strikes because I had 10 points left over, with 2 units of Order of Crimson Tower and 2 units of Order of Ashen Dawn. They all have banners. And this is just a big horse list. You can see this, I believe, in episode 12 of the Bow Reports, and it's just a bunch of horse flesh. Actually, I think this is the one where I played you. We were playing it on that like long table where we had those 2 garrisons and we got funneled into like a 3-foot area.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that was a fun game. My God. But you can kind of see there how, in the more generalist list, I'm looking at aspects to score, scenario. I'm trying to think about what I need to do, how many lights I'm bringing onto that table, because in that generalist list with the 2 more crossbows, hunter cadre, okay, I got 3 lights coming on the table. One of them is a scoring light. Then on my turn 2, what are my mediums? I got 2 units of Sealed Temple and a chapter mage with men at arms. So I got 3 mediums. One of them is a for sure score. So I got 2 scoring regiments. And I found with list building, if you have kind of like 2 dedicated units that are going to be your scorers, like your objective chuds, the rest of it you can kind of mix and match for wherever you want to go for a scenario. Because it's like, you need to score 3 things to win to get the bonus points. 2 of them are on your side of the table and 2 of them on your opponent's side of the table. It's like, well, if I'm going to be scoring those bonus points, that means I'm on my opponent's side of the table. What means the Ashen Dawn or Steel Legion or whatever else heavy thing that's doing a lot of the work is already there, like, doing shit for me. Like, I don't need to have another objective chud.
Yeah.
Like, it's good. And the back end stuff, you really only need like 2 objective chuds to control your back end anyway. And even if there's only one thing in the back end, having that backup objective chud is never a bad choice, I find, because like sometimes your objective chud dies. Cool, you have another one. Sweet.
Yeah. It's generally when I'm playing a faction where I can actually have objective chuds, I'll try to 2 is kind of the sweet spot for sure.
Yeah.
But that also, depending on what are filling those gaps, like if I'm building a Nords list, the idea is going to be the Fenner and the Stalker and Blooded are the objective chuds, so to speak. And then the Bocho and the Conan Gear, that will cap in the early game, but it's really there to fight once things are more...
Yeah, you're there to go do work.
Yeah.
Then you have your work models. So these are Steel Legion, Ashen Dawn,
Dinosaur.
The Dinosaur. Yep. What else is in there? The Thunder Riders. Like,
yeah.
All those things you see that are heavy hitters, going to be doing a ton of damage. Those are your work models. Even if they're more like defensive oriented, like I know Gilded Legion are like a great anvil if you get a bunch of stands of them all together. Like that's still going to be a work regiment. It's not going to be super, I guess, destroy-y or like destructive capabilities as a unit of Steel Legion, but it's still going up there to get work done. And even though those guys, like leaving them in a zone is fantastic, it'll take forever to dislodge them. I know Dweg's work models come from the Fire Wizard. It's all Fire Wizard. That's all I can think about. I know City States has the, what is it? It's the, it's called. Need to go back into the army builder to actually click on that. View faction. It's one of the Minotaur that Thespians?
Thyrians?
Sorry, what did you say? Thyrians?
Thyrians?
Thyrians.
That's how I've been pronouncing it. I don't know if that's right.
But... who cares? It's Greek.
It's all Greek to me.
It's all Greek to me. These are the Cleave 3 guys. Like, this is obviously a work regiment. Like, yeah. They're not there to get into a fight and brawl it out or take a hit or anything. This regiment is totally just says, yeah, let me charge it.
Yeah. That's like your Warbred in the one.
Yeah. Yeah, they just hit, do damage, kill.
Yeah, they're there to kill something, and anything else is probably the end result is just going to be they die.
Yeah.
I think that's an easy trap, I think, to fall into. Or maybe it was just me, is just that you see a bulky unit with a lot of cleave and you think, well, he takes a punch as good as he throws one.
No.
Nope.
So that also gets into list building is overtaking one of the kind of archetypes of a regiment, what it's supposed to do. So like we got the skirmisher, so here we go. Anvil units. under anvil, you could put speed bumps, pinners, tar pits, like they all kind of like anvil in a way.
Anything that catches a charge.
Yeah, anything with face tanks. Those can be anvils, but if you have an entire army of anvils, you won't be doing enough damage to win. Your opponent will be like, "Oh, sweet, they're not doing enough damage. I will slowly cut through enough of this so that I can score the thing to win." Then you get into damage. So these are your glass cannons, your brawlers. Your brawlers kind of go between anvil and hammer. Sorry, this is your hammer. Your work stuff is your hammer. So you got your hammer. You get your glass cannon hammers. So a glass cannon hammer would totally be these Minotaur Theons, while your a better hammer would be like Steel Legion because they're higher defense, or even Household Knights, like the vets up like super buffed Household Knights if they get charged from the front. But if they get charged from the side,
if you don't have anything to shut off their hardened.
Yeah, basically, you just overrun Dragon Slayers with quantity of attacks. You don't even bother trying to throw cleave at them. You're just throw dice at them until they die. That's really all it is.
Yeah, but I mean, at least that works.
Yeah, like those are your hammers. Pardon?
Save that for later.
Yeah, and hammers kind of vary from like glass hammers to like actual real hammers where they're they can take a hit and still do damage back. And Minotaur Theron, what the fuck me? God damn it, Thyrions. I'm fucking up the name every single time. Minotaur Thyrions. Say that from now on. The cleave Linebreaker boys are just a glass cannon hammer. And if you build your army out of like glass hammers or like stone hammers or hard like tanky hammers, you're usually going to be spending more and more points that way, and you won't have enough regiments to stick around to actually cover all your bases and prevent you from being side charged. And also you'll have less stuff in your command deck to actually either stay kind of up on cards with your opponent, because like I've played the Goblin list, what is classified as a Hordes army, because it's just tons of trash. Mm-hmm. And it, like, my opponent, him and I would be drawing, and then after 8 cards, my opponent would be like, go, and I'll be like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna do the rest of my cards. Like, that's what happens to, like, an elite-heavy list, and an elite-heavy list usually happens because you're grabbing too many hammers. Or you're grabbing, like, the really expensive anvils, or you're grabbing too many brawlers. So you kind of want that balance, and as you play more, you kind of find that the game sort of forces you into a balance of having enough objective chuds, having enough anvils, having enough hammers for those anvils to successfully get through and break through your opponent to win the game and score enough stuff to win.
Yeah. And I'd say the Goblin list actually is a good example of a list that sort of breaks with the greater list building orthodoxy that's emerged for the game up to this point, in that like you usually, generally speaking, I'm finding that too many activations is a disadvantage.
Except if you Goblin.
Yeah, unless you're Goblin, then
you don't give a fuck about anyone's life.
Yeah, but I generally, like, I hate when I find myself in a position where somebody just has, like, it's bound to happen in the early game when I'm playing Woodrune. It's almost guaranteed, and I don't mind as much then, but there's a point in the game where you definitely want fewer activations. You want that, at least you want that small numerical advantage on your supremacy rolls. Even if it doesn't necessarily pan out, like, sooner or later you got to take every advantage that comes your way. But even then, having fewer activations, like,
if you're fewer by like 1 card, nice. If you're fewer by 8 cards, not nice, because you just get swarmed out. Because your opponent will just be like, "I choose more crossbows. I shoot at you." And you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna get up here and kill a unit of more crossbows." And your opponent goes, "I draw the next unit of more crossbows. I shoot at you." And you're like, "Oh god, I'm gonna get shot at a bunch." They're like, "Yep," and all my stuff's gonna be up in your face. Yep, and then all your like Steel Legion and Household Knights are gonna charge me. Yep.
And that's like,
and that's a way to build a list.
It's weird though, because the amount of activations and cards that you want actually changes pretty drastically throughout the game now that I think about it. Because in the early game, like, it lets you like if I have a character in 3 activations and you've got one card that's just a regiment, like there's no scenario where you're not giving me all the information for me to make decisions for the rest of that round. And same thing if I can keep a card, like if I can keep that activation advantage with characters in the early game, that's going to help me control the flow of information in those early rounds. But then towards the mid game, I now want you to have more cards, just one or two, like you said, but I still want you to have more cards, so that way I'm getting the advantage, and then
or you have a higher chance of getting those, like, the go first.
Yeah, and it's and to a degree, like in mid game where you've put your like, just depending on how your list is composed, I guess I should say, but like if you have a lot of range stuff, like if it survives to mid game, it's going in the bottom of the stack. It's a lot of stuff where if it's just coming onto the board, if it's a medium or heavy, that's going on the bottom of the stack. So there's really just the activation order still just concerns itself with like your top 3 activations on most those mid game turns, really.
Yeah.
And then everything else.
Like so for that goblin list, my activation order was basically like whatever needed to get done first, and then if like, because I had 2 units of Steel Legion, they were just sitting in the back waiting for shit to happen, and it was like they were at the bottom of the deck because it was like my opponent has to chew through a ton, I have to move a bunch of stuff over, we're gonna find out what happens throughout the rest of the game, but at some point there's gonna be a hole, and that's when the Steel Legion are gonna go, but I can leave that hole open until the very end of the game, or very end of the round, for when the Steel Legion activate. Like, that's... And if you have a ton of cards like that, you get to make that choice. While more, I want to say, like, generalists, or more like what people tend to play are usually, like, 10-card decks, maybe, like, up to 12, maybe as low as 8. Like, I've played 6 regiments on the table before. Yep. Like, you're going. You have to get shit done with 6 activations, and when you start losing activations for nothing in return, that's when it really hurts, and that's when you're losing those games. Like, everything needs to be doing work.
And that's where it gets tough, because if your cleave guy is suddenly now you're hang on to an objective guy, like that's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, that's
2 different jobs. You can't just pay one guy one wage to do both those things.
Well, that happens in real life, but anyway. Yeah. No, and yeah, that, like, your hammer, your anvil should not be doing that work. Like, your objective chud should be doing that work, and having that planned out during your list building is what you should be thinking about. Like, how many lights am I bringing on? Like, 2 to 3 lights. Pretty decent. Like, we're talking about generalist list building and like kind of what you should be thinking about, but as you play the game, build lists, figure out what kind of your style of playing is, what do you prefer, what do you don't prefer, what works in your meta, what doesn't work in your meta, you start adjusting these kind of like the things we're talking about towards more what you feel comfortable with doing and what's working for you. If like a skew towards anvils is for some reason working because your opponents are playing like anvil heavy and it's just like boom, 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 like that, then sure, it's great. Maybe your anvils have cleave. Like Gilded Legion, Hold Thanes, like other crap off the top of my head.
I find it so weird in this game for how brutal it is most of the time when you run into a situation where it's like a strong, like a resilient anvil versus a resilient anvil, and they're actually just fighting each other to a standstill, and it's like, this isn't mechanically how this is supposed to.
It's like, damn, guys.
Happen. Somebody should be dying of being afraid, but it doesn't come.
My 6 block of Valkyries versus your 300 block of Gilded Legion. It's like, yeah, we'll be here all day.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I've gotten functionally tabled, except for the fact that they weren't going to kill... Like, everything else was dead, but they weren't going to kill my Valkyries by turn 10. Even with the most, like, mathematically favorable dice you could realistically hope for. And that's weird. That's a weird-ass place to be.
Yeah, but then the regiment's doing its job. Supposed to be an anvil.
Yeah.
Like, Velks are an amazing anvil. Ashen Dawn are an amazing brawler because it's an anvil that can hit back and kill shit. So it combines both anvil and hammers. Like, your Merc crossbows are great pinner, speed bump, and range guys because they just shoot, and then it's like, all right, it's time to die. Run up there and die for me. Pin that thing. Get in the way. So the Steel Legion, who are actually going to do all the work, don't die or get caught up or injured. Like you're everything in your list should have a role and idea what you're going to do with it, and that's kind of why we're talking about list building and what you should be looking for with your regiments.
Yeah, and further to that, and with the discussion of characters and the like, one thing that has been crossing my mind a lot lately, just as
should we move on to characters then? Because I know we've been like skipping them because.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty character centric topic, so this might as well, I guess, be our segue into that. So.
Perfect.
So character picks, like, one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is using them to shore up what the regiment doesn't do. Like the Brood of Amora on the Matriarch Queen, for instance, like, it's not on paper it doesn't seem like a lot of output, so you don't think a lot about it, but it's high quality output, so even though those are going to be the only impacts that that unit is putting on those guys, if it's killing a stand, that's like a good softening. Or like, for example, on Valks, like, I always think about putting the artifact, except that right now there's too much of an incentive not to with the other way to build her, so that she's more defensive. But the idea of a unit that's as resilient as the Valks, but with one unit cleave 1, just getting those 4 cleave 1 hits, it's better than no cleave 1 hits. So it's, I think, using characters to shore things up like that is...
What's the one that I saw recently? It was Auxiliart in the Praetorians was the one I saw recently. And the Auxiliart character was buffed up with like cleave 2, blessed for rerolling, 7 attacks, and it was like Clash 4 or something ridiculous. This is just numbers I'm rattling off for people. Like, don't go and check it all out and build the thing and be like, oh, it actually was like Clash 3, and I'm like, it's fine. It was a very offensively orientated character in a very defensive orientated regiment. Because I believe the regiment of Praetorians, I'm just gonna go to Old Dominion, and there's Auxiliar. There's Praetorians. The defense 2 with a shield. And they have a memorial for Bastion +1. And what the fuck is Profane Relic? They can get Aura of Death +2. They have 5 wounds, and they're basically defense 3, and they can memories ult to defense 4. Okay, so that's really good block with their 5 wounds. And then they have the Ziliarch, who he's like cleave 1 base. He can take combat to tier 3. Getting his clash up to 4, his cleave up to 2, go to 6 attacks. Don't care about giving him an extra wound, let's be honest here. He's just there to kill people. Yeah. Like, and I think he can take a treasure what gives him blessed on, I don't know, but whatever. But anyway, you get the idea. Like, he's a cleave 2, 6 attack murder bot in this defensible unit that's kind of there just to keep him alive, and that's the extra damage you have in that unit to kill off stuff slowly and do a grind for anvil into anvil in your favor with the character.
Yeah. I think the intuitive choice when you're building, like when you're deciding what characters to pair with which regiments, is to go with the ones that are like complementary to one another, like defensive characters into defensive units and the like. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for pairing character that plays against the unit that it's going into's sort of role to give it all the more versatility. So that's something I've been intending to experiment more with. But
no, it's a good thing to mess around with. The thing that it comes down to is that you're putting points into characters, and if the regiment the character's in isn't as defendable as the character itself, like if it's easy to wipe out, you just kill the regiment, the character runs off, you lose all those points. So, if you're going to put points into a character, make sure that character is actively using those points to help out, I want to say, like, the regiment in a whole more, so that, you know, once the regiment's dead, it doesn't matter that you're losing those points anyway, because the thing that it was attached to is dead. Like, one of the example I'm going to use is the Mounted Noble Lord. So you got its Supremacy of Speed of Horse, which gives +1 impact attack and rerolling 6s on the impact for all Household Knights, I believe including itself. You have Tip of the Lance, which gives Wedge. What if you make a successful charge, you get Cleave, or +1 Cleave, so the character goes up to +2 because you're going to take Weapon Master. And the other Household Knights with 5 attacks are all going to be Cleave 1. You then take Oliphane's Roar, which gives +1 on the Clash and Terrifying 1. +1 Clash on impacts and +1 Terrifying on impacts. So all the house, and then you have the Household Knights who are veterans for Clash 3, and you have the Tourney Champion, so you're charging from like 9 inches away plus your roll. So, and you take like 5 or 6 of these and you put them with the Mounted Noble-Lord. So this big bus of buffed out Household Knights, Weapon Master, or Wedge, Oliphane's Roar, charges into something. They each have 4 impacts each, going up to Clash 4, rerolling 6s, and they're all going to be Brutal Impact 1, so that's going to do a bunch of damage, and then you're going to be Terrifying 1, what's going to do a bunch of damage, and then they're going to do their Clash action, what's going to be 5 attacks from the front row for each of them, and 1 from all the supporting guys in the back, what's all going to be Cleave 1, so that's going to do a bunch of damage, and then, they're going to take Resolve. And there's been times where people have just died right off the charge. There's been times where they've died from the charge in Clash. But once that regiment gets stopped and killed, and the character is dead, all the buffs from that character, like, I don't feel as bad when that character dies, because the regiment that it was going to be doing that work was all the buffs for that regiment are gone because the regiment itself is gone, and it was more buffing the regiment than it was buffing the character.
Yeah.
So those upgrades I like to see more on characters, while like individual making superpowered killy guys, like that Zilliarch who can be like Clash 4, Cleave 2, 6 attacks with rerolls because of Blessed. Like, I think the guy was in like 6 Praetorians, and I just basically slowly shot all the Praetorians to death before he really like did a ton of work. Like, he was killing militia bowmen. I was like, yeah, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
And then he killed like a Merc crossbow with the Fire Wage, and I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'm playing Goblin, dude.
Yeah. And sometimes that's your best bet against a really tuned out character, is just to
Kill the regiment.
Yep.
What else about characters? You have, so there's individually like combat or focused characters. There is more support oriented characters. So those are ones with battlefield tactics, and they can grab heirlooms that buff them, like the Imperial Officer. I'm going to be talking a lot of 100 Kingdoms for this, just a heads up, listeners, because that's what I know. Like, I play 100 Kingdoms. This is what I know from 100 Kingdoms. But you can find these combos in your faction as well, and that's kind of what I'm trying to convey to you, is that here's an example in this faction. See what your faction has to either replicate it or their own thing. Like, conning gear with Raven banners to produce a high resolve bubble for Nords is a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
It's also pretty easy to do. While... Huh?
No, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. For the Imperial Officer, I like to take attack 1 through 3, but I'm mainly looking for tactical 2. Grab a banner of steel, so it provides dread to any regiment that touches the regiment the character's in. And then grab Armor of Dominion, because the regiment that's in front of me, if those stands touch the character stand, what can be a maximum of like 2, a maximum of 3, because the one in front of it and then the 45-degree corners, they lose Cleave and Smite. So that keeps that regiment alive. The battlefield drills also give +1, like, double time and Bastion for +1 defense. Shove that into a Brick of Steel Legion. Steel Legion, now, when they activate our defense 4, can't be inspired into, so my opponent is going to be less accurate of attacks into them. And any attacks that are, any stands and attacks generated from stands that are touching the Imperial Officer no longer have Cleave and Smite, so more Steel Legion will live. So I've taken a offensive glass cannon regiment of the Steel Legion, because they're just Resolve 3, Defense 3, and use the character to buff out their defenses with all the upgrades. Is it expensive? Yes. Does it work really well? Also, yes. Because usually when the character is gone, the Steel Legion are gone, or if someone tries and duels the character, I just say no and then activate the Steel Legion and just use Bravery to unbreak myself. Anything else you want to bring up, Mike?
Just similar combos in the Wadroon side of things. So with the with the hunter, it's intuitive to pair him into or not the hunter, sorry, the predator. It's intuitive to pair him into the hunters, just because they're both AP1 shooters. But what I find is putting him in slingers with Flint Napper, because he'll still be a partial beneficiary of that. But you can park him in the back with Teachings of Conquest, so the equivalent of Tactical 1 and 2, which now makes him and the regiment produce Conquest tokens, which are useful to everyone, and less so to them, since they're going to be in the back just shooting. Further to that, if you give him Kiss the Dillisaur, then and marksmanship, he'll get a lot of high-quality shots, and then that gets reroll defense. So reliably, I call him the pickup artist because he's taking a stand quite reliably at that point if you're taking aim.
Pickup artist? Jesus.
Yeah.
That's good.
So it's stuff like that. It's so knowing like what your faction can do and then leaning into that or increasing the value of that is always quite positive. It's pretty tough to get at least in the factions that I play, stuff that buffs the regiments themselves. So generally, I find that you're finding just opportunities to make that character a specialist in some way in the unit, or just to further reinforce what they're already doing.
Yeah, I know there's a mentality or like the theory of leave the characters bare and just take more regiments. And what that really comes out from for your list building is that the characters and their upgrades don't provide more than just taking more regiments or more stands for those regiments. Like, there's some people who've been crunching the numbers and they're like, this is how it works. Like, this is what I'm finding. If you just, like, don't upgrade the character and just take more regiments or more stands, and that kind of... Like, there's bits of me that kind of see that. And I'm a guy who just wants to, like, play with all the toys. I want to, like, buff out some stuff. I want to see, like, I paid for the whole speedometer. I'm going to use the whole speedometer. Like, it's one of those things where I really want to see how much drugs you can put on a character to see a regiment really go fast.
Yeah.
But that is also another way to build your list, is just to strip your characters of every upgrade to, like, the bare necessity you need from them. So the Imperial Officer in that example would have the Banner of Steel and the Armor of Dominion. I would literally just take an Imperial Officer and just put double time and plus, like, Bastion onto the officer, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because that's all I needed, and that's everything on there is free. And if I had points left over, then I might put an upgrade on him, like if I had 10 points left over kind of thing.
Yeah, so the counterpoint that I'll bring up to that as well, though, is with Wadroon, the situation that I find I run into a lot is, like, it's really easy to plop two characters in the list, fill out their warband completely, and then, like with units and potentially even, like, going larger than MSU with some of the regiments that you've added, and having enough points to spare where it's not quite... Like, it almost makes more sense to just spend the money on, like, spend the points on upgrades.
Yeah.
Rather than try and get sort of a limp additional character and regiment into the mix.
Or, like, more stands, because let's say you put, like, 6 stands and Merc crossbows on one regiment, it's like, okay, well, the back stands aren't shooting. What's the point? Or it's like, okay, or you put on, let's say, like, 7 stands of Steel Legion. It's like, do I really need 7, or could I just put this elsewhere to, like, help out in other spots?
Yeah. So it's, like, very often I would say that the argument for more units or more regiments is probably sound, unless it's not, in which case you shouldn't necessarily rule out just upgrading a character to spend points. If you're just if the other option is just to get a substandard, like, more bodies on the table is not always It's the move.
Well, and that comes down to like metas and what your locals are playing. Who are you playing into? What are they playing? Because there's also talk of like, well, this doesn't work for me. Okay, well, you play into a ton of Nords, what are glass cannons, so you might as well just take stuff that could just kill glass cannons really well and not like other stuff, kind of thing, like stuff like that. Like I know there's one guy's meta who was literally just spires and dwags, and he was the only 100 Kingdoms player, and he was like, "What the fuck do I do?" And I'm like, "Cry."
Yeah, well, I was like me trying to explain to the community at large that like I play in a brick community, so like
if you're not bricking, you're not here. We take people like you outside.
I had to like my list building philosophy. Like now, I finally moved away from the brick, but it definitely like it was an easier way to make lists that competed with the local meta than trying to make a wide list work. So it was like I think I'm better off now that I moved to the other mode, but that involved me getting better as a player as well.
Yeah. Also, congratulations at you getting better as a player.
Well, hopefully. I mean, we'll see.
Well,
I'm sure now that I've acknowledged it, I'm just gonna go this week to the thing and just suck ass. Just absolutely just Pez dispense my regiments into the guy.
You're like all your learned knowledge gone, wasted.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, I want to go up against a real I want to fight Dwag ultimately at this point, just to send my ass back to Earth, you know?
Just talk to the brother. He'll fucking do it. He'll be like, "No, I don't want to play Dwag. They're OP." And you'll be like, "No, I need to be whipped hard."
Yeah.
Say it like that too. He loves it.
Yeah, that's not... That's a problematic age gap for me to be talking that way.
Oh my god, that poor bastard. Like, oh man, I want to be there for that conversation just so I could laugh.
No.
He'll do it though. Like he'll play Dwagon to you if you ask him.
I talked to him about it last week because it was my second win against City States, so I figured
you need to up it. It's like City States weak sauce now.
Well, it's not that they're weak sauce, like they're or even that he was playing poorly or anything like that. Like things worked out for me is my ultimate assessment of how the games went. But like,
also he came from Dwag where you didn't have to think to a faction. You have to think. Like, give him some props for playing a real faction.
Well, like I see that's the thing. Like I think it against City States in particular, Wadroon actually are a strong matchup just because like they're playing a war game and I'm like
you're just a bunch of
playing
people in
street
go-karts.
hoops. Like I'm just crossing over them and slam dunking over their heads and like there were situations in those games where conceivably like I could have gotten around behind their back line if I had really like focused on making that the play, which would have been pretty funny, but probably would have not worked out in the long run. But like the mobility difference is really sharp, I think, against City States.
I want to say City States is the faction that really embodies rank and file currently for Conquest.
Yeah.
Like it really does, just because of how it's all set up. It doesn't have a ton of range elements, especially not out yet, but just in their faction in general, it doesn't have a ton of guns, so it can't, like, really... what am I trying to really get at? Like, have their anvils hit, have their range support, have a hammer coming from the side. They're very just, like, if you can master the hammer and anvil of just, like, Hoplite block, Minotaur, hammer. Hoplite block, Minotaur, hammer. Like, you can win with City States. It's been proven because there's a guy who won Adepticon with just Minotaurs and Hoplites because that was all what was out. Actually, I was talking to him. Supposedly, people were calling him, like, blaming him for spamming. It's like, the dude had only 4 fucking regiments available to him. He, bought 3 City States boxes and played that at a tournament. Like, you kidding me?
Well, skew list is a skew list. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
I don't make the rules. If you skew, you go in a hill.
Yeah.
God, we gotta put. Do you want to put that one on a shirt? I still want on a shirt. You live by the Nord, you die by the Nord. So dumb.
So many bad t-shirt ideas that we can execute.
Yeah, send us t-shirt ideas.
But yeah, I don't know. It's fuck, what was I trying to say? Yeah, the city states, they just they're good at moving in a direction very methodically, but if you can start to like give them that old razzle dazzle, then that's a pretty good just natural counter to them. So it'd be interesting. Like, I would be interesting, I think, to run my Nords again, because I've fully embraced just the movement bullshit of Woodrune at this point.
Oh, good.
Like,
that's your stick.
Yeah, and then I'm just so you're gonna experience the curl, as I call it, where I take 21 inches of hunting pack movement and move a net 6 inches across the table.
The fuck am I gonna be looking at? Like, I have to go to work for like 2 fucking weeks, then I'm gonna come back and it's gonna be like
you're gonna see some
crazy
crazy shit when you get back.
Like you're gonna set up all your minis and I'll be like, okay, we gotta play, and you're like, yeah, one moment, and I'm just gonna see you do this. Let's go. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck?
There was always a danger of that. That's if I was as cool as I was 7 years ago, then
oh god.
But yeah, no, it's yeah, I would be interested to see how I do against them with like a Nords list, just because then there's less movement BS that I can do, and it's more about the fundamentals.
I'm actually trying to get one of my buddies from War Machine to play Conquest. I'm going to be like, hey, I got a bunch of Nords. You want to play? Well, we need a Nords player who doesn't just like bounce.
Yeah.
For better things,
or go back to his orcs when he has too many bad games.
No, there's that other guy who's playing Nords, and then he discovered Old Dominion and the Fallen Divinity and went for that.
Yeah, there's 2 guys who have both Nords and Old Dominion and Wadroon. So actually, I guess that's just.
Is that our Vanguard? Is he the other one who has Old Dominion, Wadroon, and Nords?
Because I guess we're preserving people's anonymity.
Yeah, we can't say their name.
Describe him. Describe this.
How tall is he? 7'3"?
So no. One guy has a shaved head and the other guy doesn't.
Yeah, that's like half our fucking meta. People have early onset balding.
It's the guys who look like that and also have those 3 armies, so
fuck if I know then. You can just DM that shit to me.
Yeah, I'll just tell you in private after. But there's definitely at least 2 people who, got into those 2 armies and then just stopped showing up. So, I guess my advice to the listener is when people join your game, get leverage. So that way, if they try to stop coming to the weekly Conquest night, you have something that you can use to force them to come. It's called building a community.
Get them addicted to plastic cocaine. That's what I did. Like, I was like, when I played War Machine, I'd do a demo game and be like, oh, what faction do you like? And they're like, oh, I like this one because it looks like, like the art speaks to me, the models. I'm like, okay, cool. And I just buy them like the battle box that was $50 and be like, here you go, I'll see you next week. And they'd be like, oh shit. And that's how they started their plastic minis addiction, because I used the drug dealer mentality. First hit's free.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually worked a lot. I'm really surprised. The problem with Conquest is that the starter boxes are like $150 to $200.
Yeah. But good value for what they are. But usually 100%. When I want somebody to try a tabletop game, I'm like, play this game with me and I'll give you 2 or 3 bumps of blow throughout the... No, that's a lie. But I just felt like I had to do like the most literal version of what you were discussing as a counterpoint. So
God damn it, we gotta put an explicit thing at the
people
start
in their
of this
20s
podcast.
to try war games one time with that strategy.
Yeah. I took my old War Machine minis and I grinded them up so I could snort the plastic. Fuck.
Hey, I mean, poisoning yourself is similar to doing drugs in a lot of ways, so just hitting that terminal amount of plastic in your body is probably gonna eventually you're gonna start to feel something.
Maybe I could build a list fucking properly for goddamn once.
Yeah, that's how I feel these days. But I mean, that's what we're talking about. So maybe we'll come away from this better list builders.
Yeah, baby. Well, we kind of like touched on a bit of like it's kind of like an overall arching general arc of like list building, what people should be looking at and looking for. We'll probably do more episodes onto specific things and stuff like that. Like, you know, it's a lot to talk about and a lot to kind of wrap your head around and ideas. And so usually like the first couple of episodes of being like, hey, we're going to talk about this thing. It's a general idea. You should kind of follow these ideas and parameters and then play with them until you find something you like is kind of the way to go for a lot of stuff. And then just listening to content or, you know, watching stuff is really just like, oh, I didn't think about this before. Oh, thanks for opening my eyes about that. Oh, maybe I should go find my version of that. Like, you know, shit like that. Like, kind of pique the interest and, like, get the gears running in your head.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nah.
It's it's also like one thing I'm finding is just through the course of recording these is that it's hard to actually speak concisely and fully to a topic when you do no preparation whatsoever. So I find that there's so many tangents and top like stuff that you wind up having to like further expand on over the course of it that there's stuff that you just naturally don't touch on. So I feel like we're kind of like, you know, these early episodes are individual threads, and with that, we're waving this beautiful tapestry of skill development for people who are trying to, you know,
Figure out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, trying to figure out when to rank and when to flank.
When to rank and flank.
Yeah.
I'm. To be honest, I'm not really worried. Like, I do this for fun.
I just like talking.
I like saying the words. Oh man! So before we like go off a complete tangent and ruin all our listeners because we're just like going off again, is there anything else you want to talk about for army building that we haven't really talked about yet?
The only thing I can think of is just heavies in this game. It's not a huge amount of stuff to talk about, but just in terms of how units are designed, they tend to be undercosted for what they do because you have to wait for them, so they're more tempting to take for that reason. But now the game gives you so many screwy ways to cheat. A heavy on the table, like guaranteed turn 3, and then possibly even 2 guaranteed turn 3 if you're really clever. Mm-hmm. That heavies are generally like a good bet for what they provide. So it's I think that, or at least for me personally, I almost went into this with like a monster mentality from like games like Games Workshop type games where it's like a whole separate class of thing that does its own thing and requires its own answers, whereas and I'm sorry to use 2 tapestry or 2 blended thing examples in such a short span, but the list building and the use of heavies in Conquest is more of a mosaic where you need to have where it's not necessarily, it's something that's going to be a natural part of the list building no matter what, is what I mean to say.
Well, heavies can be split off into their own, like, is this an anvil? Like, they're, like you said, they kind of get into their own classification because the heavy regiments are going to be the ones that do the work usually in your list. Like, these are the guys who are doing all the heavy lifting to kill stuff, to get through things, to win the game. While the lights and mediums are like the appetizer, and they're just the appetizer and then the soup.
Yeah.
Or the salad, and then this is just like, this is the steak. You're going to eat it now. And so one of my things is, like, when I'm building lists is that I don't try to focus hard into heavy regiments, like skew that way, because then I don't have enough things early on to counter stuff, and you kind of get bogged down and pushed back, and your opponent outscores you and wins before your heavies kill enough stuff to get into scoring elements to win the game.
Yeah.
And usually they're very points expensive as well. Like, they can be if you start adding more and more in regiments of them. Like, if you start spamming heavies, I found, like, taking 2 units of Crimson Towers and 2 units of Ashen Dawn and these are just MSUs with like banners, is basically 1,000 points or over 1,000 points with the character. Like there's half your list building and you just have 4 MSUs.
Yeah, and that's one actually area where the Apex Predators are really great, is that they're $1.90 a piece, so it's very easy to take. Considering what you need to invest into some regiments to get similar output, they are a very competitive slot choice. That's why I like to run 2, because it saves me some points.
And a thing I tell a lot of people is, if it's good, run 2 of it. You won't feel bad running 2 of it, because, you know, if one dies, oh, I got another one, sweet. Or you can run them side by side, sweet.
Until you're running 5 lights because you want to have 2 slingers and a hunters and a hunting packs and a raptors, and now you just mathematically can't win the game.
Too many lights. Don't skew all the way light. If you're gonna skew anywhere, skew it into mediums, because then at least everything can score.
Yeah.
Some of my other, I guess, talking about heavies and list building, is that I like to have 2 to 3 lights, a bunch of mediums, and 2 to 3 heavies. Like, it kind of forms a bell curve of like the weight classes for regiments, where it's like I want a couple lights, a couple heavies, but a majority of my list is in that medium slot, because they're kind of cheaper. They're mainstays to get into those restricted heavies or lights or mediums or whatever else that fill out those spots. And they score, and you can kind of run them around places to do enough work so that the heavies can come in and like finish her off or like be the actual workhorse. So that kind of gets into like Household Guard, Sealed Temple. I love Sealed Temple. I'm not gonna lie, this is fantastic. I can't wait for those guys to come out. What else is another good medium? Steel Forge is restricted, but you're gonna be taking Hold Warriors or Fire Forge with them, so but those guys are basically a heavy and a medium's body.
Yep. Valks are quintessential good medium. Yep.
And they're a mainstay too.
Yeah. So I feel like Wadroon really suffers for good non-restricted mainstay infantry within sort of their normal wheelhouse. Like if you go into the Chosen and the Scion, you get some options there that are good, albeit expensive. But like the Blooded and the Braves both have things that you have to keep in mind when you run them that maybe don't exist for other mediums to the same degree. So that's one area, like that's one faction where I feel like the medium situation overall is not as good as you want it to be.
Well, I
don't think I had a purpose to bring that up. I think I just wanted to grouse about it.
Yeah, but like Chosen and Conquest are 230, and they're a fantastic medium. But then you get like Chosen of War, Famine, and Death, who are all like 200 to 230, and they cover the more mediums and lights. But I wouldn't be surprised if Wadroon players started going down the Chosen route once more like Chosen of Death or War come out.
Yeah,
maybe even Famine. And cause what's the Scion? He's a medium. Where are you, Scion? Yeah, okay. So you're gonna put the Scion of Conquest in the Chosen of Famine, just so they can score. That's happening right off the bat. You didn't see that happening. No, I was looking at that. But yeah, but Chosen, like those Chosen units in Wadroon, they're elite priced. So like you're kind of going down into a more elite list with those, and you're spending the points for it. So you're going to have less regiments, but they're all going to be doing really well.
Yeah. And that's
where... then you take a Thunder Rider Chieftain.
Yeah. Yeah, the Thunder Chieftain and the Thunder Riders that's going to be a good thing for us to have, us being Wadroon overall. But, yeah, I don't know. The right now, in the current state of things, like Blooded and Braves are both things that I'm actively trying not to take for the most part. And Veterans, even with the adjustments, based on my experiences trying to run them, has been... The argument tends to be that you get more value per point spent with just a big brick of Braves than you do with the same point value worth of Veterans. So
the Braves and the Braves stepping on the feet of the Veterans kind of thing, like
Yeah.
They fill the same role, but they're not distinct enough to justify the difference in point cost. And you can mitigate bloodlust through the Matron Queen by giving them a really high resolve.
Yeah, big brick, matriarch queen. They're generally doing
Done.
what you want them to. So yeah, that's so. I mean, if that it varies from faction to faction, I guess is my point. But different factions are going to have better spreads. The at the cost and for what the way that it can be a threat holding a point, like having an apex predator hang back and hold a point, sometimes isn't the worst decision.
No, I've done it. I think in my last battle report, I literally had a 6 block of Steel Legion sit on the point because the rest of the rest of the list was just doing so much work, either like through the Ashen Dawn, through the shots from Merc Crossbows and Hunter Cadre, and Sealed Temple doing work, that I was just killing the rest of my opponent. Like, I was just killing my opponent so much that I just was like, well, Steel Legion, you can just sit on this point and score for me because I fucking need something to sit on it, and you're the only one close enough to do it.
But yeah, now I feel like I've said everything that I can think of to say on the matter of list building.
Well, should we wrap this up then?
Yeah, I guess that's probably where we're at for this one.
Okay. So, thanks for everyone coming to listen to the BonkTable podcast. I hope this helped somebody and just understanding kind of like things they should look for, ideas they should be looking at, and just to kind of give you a general overview of what you should be looking for to help you build your list and trying to find those things in those factions, what fit those roles, either in the previous episode of Terminology or even in this episode. I want to give a shout out to Mike, who's been helping me out with the podcast and stuff. He edits one podcast once a month. So if you can figure out what episode it is, I won't give you anything. Congratulations, you did it.
You've identified the work of a severely mentally disturbed person.
If it has tentacles coming from the side, you know who it was.
Yeah.
I also want to say we have the BonkTable Discord. Link will be in the show notes below if you want to join that. We have the BonkTable YouTube. We got battle reports. Even these podcast episodes go up on there. Just I throw a meme up, so if you want to check out the meme, go right ahead. If that's how you want to listen to podcasts because you got YouTube Premium, also go right ahead. And what else can I say? I think that's it.
I just want to apologize to our audience sincerely for not discussing any famous professional skateboarders of the late 90s or 2000s at any point during this episode. We are aware of the failure of trust that's occurred, and I'm going to make every effort to ensure that we never betray our listeners like that in the future.
Is this your State of the Union address?
Yeah, this is me laying it all out for our listening audience. I'm committed. Bob Burnquist, Ed Templeton, Jesse Thomas, all the Tumyeto legends, going back to the Bones Brigade, Santa Cruz, the classics. I promise we'll talk about skateboarding no matter what.
Where the fuck is the stop button? Someone please get the gun.
You can't kill me in a way that matters.
I can't smash enough buttons to make this stop.
Now that's podcast magic.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Oh, mercy. I think I have heat stroke.